me introduce to you the writers who work incredibly they work incredibly hard during this period of the year. And I'm going to bring them on one by one. I want to bring on Sabina Dana Plasse. Sabina, how's it going?
It's good. It's good to see you guys. You look good.
Yeah. You look good as well.
You made it back. Sabina was at Park City. She's home now, I believe.
Sabina's currently in an empty warehouse.
Yes.
Which explains the echo. But just want to let you know it's you might want to. There you go. It's fine. Sabina, before we start talking about movies, what I want to get your take on what has been happening in Park City, Utah. You had some thoughts about the Sundance Film Festival. So I want to hear your thoughts before we get into specific film reviews.
Yeah. So how's that sound? Okay, we good?
It sounds good. It's like I say, it's kind of echoey.
But it's
not much we can do.
Yeah.
All right. So I live out in the Mountain West, which is I'm about 4 hours north of Park City, and prior to that, I've been traveling around the country for the last 2 years during the pandemic. But besides that, the whole world moved to these mountain towns. Anyone with any money left where they were, kept their house, and they moved to mountain town. Park City is definitely one of them, and it was a place growing already before the pandemic. So arriving at Sundance this year, it was an enormous crowd of people. It was skiers, it was new people living there, and the festival. And I'm sure you guys know this better than anyone. Coming out of the pandemic, everything is rusty, trying to get back in order, trying to find the lane that you've been in all this time. It's not the same. And it was freezing, and it's still freezing. Like the coldest Sundance I've ever been to in the last.
Let me cut to the chase. How is Sundance different now after 2 years of being virtual?
So less information, that people just weren't with it. That there was a lot of misinformation. People who didn't know things, they knew the wrong things. They couldn't get the bus system in order. And it just Wi-Fi horrible. The app you're using for your tickets, it's now scanning. You don't really need paper tickets anymore. The coolest part about that app, though, is the transfer thing. Like you can give tickets to anyone at any time who's on the app, which I love. But the whole freaking world is on there with you. So you couldn't upload, do anything. It worked 5 seconds before you got in the theater, and your phone was frozen cold.
Bottom line, what I heard is everybody had bad experiences waiting in line for things. The app didn't completely function accurately. Wi-Fi was terrible.
Horrible.
Traffic was terrible. So if you wanted to get from one theater to the other, and also I heard from other people that it was kind of deserted because most journalists this year opted to not attend in person. They decided to just go the virtual route and watch movies virtually. So I'm just trying to because we've got like 4 other writers that are waiting in the wings.
Yeah.
I want to keep the conversation going.
Oh yeah, it was a hustle.
Is that accurate? Is that an accurate description of like what's happening?
I mean, so let me in the beginning, yes, and it's a hustle. It's always a hustle at Sundance, and that's just the way it is. It was still sold out. Every freaking screening I went to was sold out with wait lists and the whole deal. So it's still Sundance in terms of seeing it in person. The only difference is, you didn't have the journalists that you normally have. Like I was asked to come on to press lines. I was just waiting to see movies. And they're like, "You're press, come interview us." Like, I got to meet Ruth Reichel at the in Food and Country. It was awesome. Like, I had her all to myself. And you should know, anytime I showed up for a press line, people were like, "Film Threat!" They love Film Threat. Everyone was so happy to see the name Film Threat, and that felt pretty good, you guys. I have to say. Because the rest of the festival, you're on your own. You are digging in. It was cold. It was snowy. The snowy part was better and it was tough. They were not organized. But I did not see a film I didn't like.
All right. Well, they say it's the mountain air. They say it's the mountain air. So, because I will say this, like I've seen movies in Park City at Sundance where it was like packed. It was hard to get in. You go see the movie. There's an electricity in the air. No one knows anything about this movie except for a poorly written description in the festival program guide, which doesn't even accurately represent the movie. My red flag word is whenever I see the word earnest, I usually don't go see that movie. But like so you don't even know what the movie's about because there's one still from the film. There's barely posters or marketing. So you're seeing a film untainted by the marketing because you haven't been told what to think about it yet. So then you go and you see it and it's packed. There's usually a standing ovation because I can't believe they finished a movie. So you're all happy because you're there. The filmmakers and the actors get up and they give a speech, a Q&A that's very enthusiastic. And I'll walk away going, wow, that was awesome. And then a year or two later, I'll see the exact same movie again, on television. And I'm like, why the fuck did I like that movie? It was a piece of shit. That movie was fucking awful. Why did I like that? It was so dumb.
And you guys know I've got quite a few film reviews to write, and I've been thinking about them all day because I just literally got back. And they're sitting with me. I'm sorry. Like I'm the first person to say, no way, that sucked. What are they doing? What a waste of money, my time, my effort. And I was like, people are happy to be making movies. They're happy to be making independent movies. And it was so good to be with an audience that you could randomly talk to anyone because you're at a film festival. You're all there with a common purpose. And that felt pretty good. I'm not going to lie. Like randomly having conversations and then you'll never see that person again. It still felt great.
Well, I hear what you're saying. I'm just saying that there is something about context. Context and presentation. Context and presentation matters, like how an audience sees a movie, or if you're like buying the merch and whatnot. So I think that's fine. But I always sort of like when I see incredibly enthusiastic reviews come out of Sundance, and I know this just from going for years, I always kind of like dial it back a little bit. So yeah, we're gonna bring everybody on one by one, and you have no idea who any of these people are, but you will see their names on the Film Threat website. When you go to filmthreat.com, look for their names. It's Alex Saveliev here. Alex, how's it going?
Hey everybody, good to see you.
Okay, cool. Let's see. Then we also have, I'm gonna do this for a second because I want people to see your names. Then we have Talbot-Haynes is joining us. Ben Franz and Jason Delgado.
Jason, he's working on his connection there, so
he's got a bad connection.
Once he finds a stable connection, we'll bring him on.
All right. Well, Michael, I love your T-shirt. Rocking the Film Threat shirt. Love it. Let's first of all, before we each have you individually review a movie, in a very quick. Give us your just sort of overall impressions of Sundance. We'll start with Alex.
Echoing Sabina's sentiment, actually, I'm a pretty harsh critic, and I tend to kind of elevate the score a little bit for struggling indie filmmakers because I know the struggles that they face. But I don't have to do that this time. I mean, I was just based purely on merit. I had 6 films to review. I knocked them all out. They were all pretty great. I mean, even the worst one I've reviewed had some like palpable ambition, and you could tell like the passion that the filmmaker put into it. So nothing negative to say. And I'd like to also echo your concern that I'm kind of, having heard her story, I'm kind of glad that I didn't attend the actual festival and I did it remotely.
I think we all are.
Yeah.
There's nothing like sitting at home and your kids are asleep and you have that, like the evening descends upon the city and then you're one-on-one with the film, just you and the laptop or the TV screen or whatever it is, and you can press pause, you can have a drink, you can have a beer. Like it's warm, like I just didn't feel like I was missing out at all.
Yeah. I mean, I felt the same way. Like I've been there, I've been going since I think 96. And I missed a couple years here and there. I haven't gone the last few years, but yeah, there's something about that like constant rush, like of like every night there's like, okay, you're seeing like 3 movies during the day if you're lucky, some parties in between, maybe a midnight movie, rinse, repeat. So it definitely ends up being something of a grind. Wait, I'm gonna fix that in a minute. But yeah, it's the virtual now let me ask, did they do the land acknowledgments for virtual?
Oh yeah.
Not for virtual.
No, not for virtual, but everywhere I
not
was.
for virtual.
Yeah.
But they did land acknowledgments. How does everyone feel about the land acknowledgments?
It's weird.
It's
It's like
a little uncomfortable. Like, I don't know. I'm like,
a little uncomfortable. Yeah. It's like, this used to belong to Navajo.
Right.
Well, where are they now?
Right. It's
I mean, if I were white, I'd feel really bad about myself.
that's what it's supposed to. That's what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to make you feel bad.
It's a perpetual state of mind these days. Like I wake up feeling bad, I go to sleep feeling bad. So like it's just nothing's gonna make me feel worse than media already does. So
My house is on stolen land.
Well, I just
I
wondered
think all of ours are.
I just wondered if they were still doing it. Michael, what are your thoughts? Overall impressions, just briefly, before we get into specific reviews.
Overall impressions about Sundance?
Yeah.
This Sundance was very unusual for me because instead of being given several films to review, I was given one film that was actually the length of several films to review.
Oh no.
However, the 4.5-hour film was a biography on Willie Nelson. So I'm a happy guy.
Oh, that's great. And what do you think, Ben? What are your thoughts too?
It was pretty great. I did it virtually, obviously, and the films that I watched were wonderful and strange, and the midnight one was especially creepy. So yeah, it was a good time.
That's good to hear. All right, let's go around before we actually get into specific reviews, starting with Sabina. Best movie you saw at Sundance, and then we'll get into individual reviews.
Deep Rising.
Tell us about it.
So it's a documentary executive produced by Jason Momoa and a Swiss documentary director. He's been at Sundance before. It's about mining the ocean, mining the seafloor for metals and minerals, because our world is going to be battery operated and we need a new place to find the substances to help us make batteries. And so the director follows this guy who is raising capital for his mining company. And he goes to all the meetings and he's talking about how we're not going to upset the environment. And you're like watching these enormous machines get dumped into the ocean to mine the floor, which we know nothing about. And so the film juxtaposes Jason Momoa's narration on a subject he is very impassioned about. Plus he has no filter. He was there, no filter. And gorgeous imagery of life at the deep parts of the ocean, all the things where we came from. And it's gorgeous. It was kind of like a meditation, to be honest. It was beautifully done, really well researched. The guy who's starting this mining company eventually goes public. He reminds me a great deal like the WeWorks.
Well, wait, don't do it. You're like doing the full review. I just want to get briefly the best film that you saw. Let's go to you. What was briefly the best film you saw of the movies you saw at Sundance? Ben.
Oh, so the best film I saw was probably Is There Anybody Out There?
Oh.
Is there any what?
It's called Is There Anybody Out There?
Is there anybody out there? What's it about? Tell us.
It's about a woman named Ella Glendining and her life with a particularly fascinating disability in that she was born without hips. And apparently this is a condition known as PFFD. I don't remember what all the initials stand for. And it happens in about 0.6% of the population. So one of her grand adventures, and the memoir part of this documentary, is finding out if there's anybody currently living who shares her condition, because her boyfriend and her son definitely don't. So she's interested to see if there's more PFFD sufferers out there without hips. So that was a fascinating thing. Yeah, that one.
Alex, what about yourself?
That is her body.
What was the best thing? I mean, everyone seems like overall people saw a lot of good stuff. Alex, what was the best thing you saw?
Nicole Holofcener's You Hurt My Feelings. It's been a while since she made a film. I think it's been like 6-7 years or something, and she's way overdue. In a time where most films are driven, it seems like, political ideologies and special effects and whatnot, she still makes films that are character driven, and by that I mean like you really deeply involve yourself immediately from the first frame in the characters' lives, and then you don't want the film to end based purely on the fact that you want to know what happens to the characters next. And that's such a rarity these days in films, where it's sort of like the main actress is Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and she's famous for the show Seinfeld, which was a show about nothing. Similarly, this film is sort of a film about nothing, but it's also about everything. She plays a writer, an aspiring writer, and she eavesdrops on her husband talking to a friend about how much he hates her new book. And that's sort of like the premise for the whole film. And then she sort of starts to their relationship starts to sag a little bit. Like there's this issue of trust. And also the film explores like the honesty and the dishonesty that we have with each other. Like, why are we dishonest with each other when we give each other compliments that we don't mean? Is it out of love? Like, ultimately, does it do more good than bad? So a lot of interesting themes explored in a very light but deep film.
And Michael, you just saw the one film.
That is correct. But honestly, I had seen another film besides Willie Nelson and Family. Willie Nelson and Family would still be the best film for just purely because of the scope and purely because so many of us have been waiting decades for this biography on Willie Nelson to be made.
Right. All right. Well, let's actually start with. So, wait, we've got a couple of comments.
Yeah, actually, Jason just joined us.
Jason. Jason just joined us. How's your internet, Jason? It looks like it sucks.
It's been terrible. Yeah,
that's great. All right, real quick, Jason Delgado. What was your overall impression and what's the best film that you saw of the Sundance screeners you had access to?
Well, I've only done Slamdance so far, but I really enjoyed Love Dump. It's a parody, kind of in the vein of UHF, Weird Al.
Yeah, we'll talk about Love Dump later. That's right. You're covering Slamdance. Alex, I know you have to go, so why don't you? And when we talk about these movies, we're not going to have time to go in any great depth. Try to keep the descriptions to just a couple minutes, and then we'll occasionally go for comments and questions. I'm going to feature you larger screen here, but Alex, tell us about the film that you would like to review.
Well, I mentioned the Nicole Holofcener film, so that was really good, but I kind of already described it. Another film was Sometimes I Think About Dying. That was kind of interesting. What I thought was interesting about it was it stars Daisy Ridley in the most minimalist kind of setting you can imagine, which is a drastic contrast to the stuff that she's been known for prior to that. So normally, the case is you discover an actress at Sundance or an actor, and then that actor or filmmaker becomes popular afterwards and goes on to do big budget fare. In her case, she was kind of plucked out of obscurity, put into Star Wars, the biggest franchise of all time. She did a pretty great job, but there wasn't much room for character development or incisive like storytelling there. It's just sort of it's Star Wars. And then she did that Kenneth Branagh film, so it was star-studded film. So she's never really had an opportunity to truly display her talents. And this film, Sometimes I Think About Dying, is set in a very small coastal town. Nothing much happens in the film. She has a boring office job. She fantasizes about herself being sprawled on the rocks or in the forest dead. And that's like sort of like the morbid undercurrent that goes through the film. But the film itself isn't morbid at all. She meets people, like there's a coworker that gets replaced, and She meets the man that replaced the coworker, and she sort of hits it off with him. But her lack of communication and her introvert nature sort of goes against his extroverted nature. So that clash is fascinating to observe, and how he brings out the life back into her, how he imbues her with life again. So it's really an interesting kind of character study and a spectacular showcase for Daisy Ridley.
What that sounds good. How is Daisy Ridley? Because she's coming off of doing Star Wars, right? Like she's obviously doing stuff to kind of get people to forget that awful Star Wars sequel trilogy. Anything you can do to get her to forget that terrible trilogy. And someone asked, the Hidden Hand asked, does she have any talent?
Yes. The answer is absolutely resounding yes. Like, she holds that film together. I mean, the other actors are great, but everything pivots around her character. And I think that when she read the script, she might have been surprised. Like, she probably has like 4 lines in the entire film. It's a very silent performance. So she's very expressive, but again, she's an introvert. So it's like the most minute gestures exemplify like a plethora of feelings. So it's a pretty incredible performance, and it definitely showcases a side of her that we have not seen before.
Cool. Well, thanks for that, Alex. Let's go to Michael Talbot-Haynes. Tell us about this Willie Nelson documentary. What's it called?
Oh, it is called Willie Nelson and Family, and it is a 5-part documentary series covering the life of Willie Nelson, as well as his family, who he usually goes ahead and plays on stage with. I got to see Willie Nelson about 20 years ago at one of his picnics, where they had Neil Young and Crazy Horse along with Billy Bob Thornton performing music, with lots of other people. And every single act, Willie Nelson would get up and start jamming away with the band that was playing on stage with his famous guitar with the hole in it and stuff. So basically, by the time Willie Nelson actually got on stage at 1 a.m, we had already seen him about 8 times already playing with different artists. But that's what went ahead and got me the interest of going ahead and one day seeing this man's story. And this is the first official authorized biography that Willie has allowed to get out. And it is everything that you ever wanted it to be and then some. It's absolutely marvelous. If you're not a fan of his music, you're still going to love this, because for folks that like the whole independent film thing and the whole impulse for independent film, this series does go ahead and give you justification as to why the indie route is going to always be the better route. Because Willie Nelson worked in the Nashville industry for years as a songwriter, and they tried to break him as a performer, but every single time he would go the Nashville route, it would fall flat on its face. And it was only when he just quit Nashville and started doing stuff his own way, with growing the hair long and the whole outlaw bit, that he actually started becoming, like a mega successful artist. And the film just keeps hammering that point over and over and over again about he finally, once he stopped listening to the industry and started doing it his own way, that's when the real success came. His son Micah makes sort of comparisons to the whole punk rock thing with the outlaw country music and the whole punk rock movement. And then, of course, Willie Nelson is seen wearing a T-shirt from my favorite punk band of all time, X, like in one of the interviews. So yeah, lots of fun. I watched all 4.5 hours in one sitting, which honestly, I think if this does end up on a streamer, that's how the majority of folks are going to be watching it, all in just one great big joint.
That's great. I love the idea of like actually something that shows someone who's very successful, Willie Nelson, and going the indie route. Anything that kind of like supports that, I love seeing those stories. Like a weird book recommendation I'm just going to throw out to everybody. It's a book that was published by The Onion like 20 years ago, maybe longer. God, longer now that I think about it. It's called The Tenacity of a Cockroach. And The Tenacity of a Cockroach is a collection of interviews with creative people. And the one thing they kind of all have in common is they've worked for sort of, you know, in the corporate space, whether as a filmmaker, a writer, or a musician, and then like how they kind of transitioned where they took more control of their creative career. In particular, one of the great interviews in that book is from Amy Mann, where she talks about how she transitioned from corporate music. There was a time where because of the rules of her contract, she couldn't even publish music and put it out. And she talks about how she made this transition. She's the woman, she did the song Voices Carry, which if you're from the 80s, you'll remember that. I'm the right age for that. And then exactly. And then, you know, she kind of took everything back and she did the music for Magnolia, right? I mean, those were just songs that Paul Thomas Anderson loved and they put into Magnolia. So I love any story about how a creative person can distance themselves from corporate interference. Do you know where this thing, Willie Nelson and Family, like where it's going to end up being?
No, I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure if it's already got a planned distribution already, or if they're going ahead and premiering it at Sundance in order to see which streamer or distributor, like it could end up even on television, to go ahead and take it. So no, I have not. I don't know the skinny as to when it's going to be available or where, but it is a matter of when. It's certainly not going to be an if, because this is the goods.
Cool. All right, let's pivot to Sabina. You saw a lot of movies. You were actually on the ground. You were there in Park City, and no, I love it. You had the badge. I keep all my old badges. I love it.
I got it.
But like, tell us, pick a movie that you want to talk about and give us the deep dive on it.
Well, I want to go back to Deep Rising because it fits our whole conversation about attending or not attending a film festival. And I love this movie because I actually saw all documentaries except for one drama. But I love this because it's earth-shattering to hear what's going on in our oceans. But they also show this beautiful element to why we need to know more about them. And there was also the idea of, okay, so if we don't mine the ocean, if we're running out of oil and energy and everything's going to be battery and electrified in our future, what the hell are we going to do, right? And so right when that question in the movie happens, the scene goes dark and black, and there's a complete technical difficulty. And it was great. That's why attending is kind of fun. The scientist that's in the movie that you're following, he's from Spain. He's very bright. He's very funny. Is in the audience, and he jumps up and he goes, "Hydrogen!" And everyone's like, "Yo, okay." And the film comes back up, and it finishes out, and this creepy guy who set up this, mining the ocean company that went public, and he went around to China and everybody to get money, and he's claiming he's being this big environmental resource. He's hanging himself, and I literally bomb rushed the director after the film, and I was like, "Did he really agree to do this film?" And he's like, "He signed off." I'm like, "Does he know?" He's like, "I guess not." And then Jason Momoa, like I said, no filter whatsoever. Very passionate about the project. It couldn't have been more interesting. So it was a great experience to go there and see all that go down, because it wouldn't happen any other way. And then every other documentary I saw the Brooke Shields one. I saw the Judy Blume documentary.
Well, wait, just back up a second on the Deep Rising. Jason Momoa, did he talk anything about the DC cinematic universe? Did he talk about Lobo or Aquaman 2 or Amber Heard? Did any nerd at Sundance ask him about anything superhero related?
So unfortunately, no.
All right, well then there you go. That's all I wanted to know. But I really want to hear about, what's the name of the Judy Blume documentary?
forever. So, the reason I'm mentioning all these documentaries, and I saw the Little Richard one, is because a lot of directors sat in freaking archives and all grabbed all these interviews from all the same daytime TV shows, and you relived your 80s in every single one of those documentaries. Every single one. And Gene Shalit was in all of them. All of them. Brooke, in Judy Blume, in Little Richard, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, did everyone sit in a room together and just parcel out the news footage? It was pretty funny, but it was very 80s. Like, everything I saw, it was all about how the 80s changed everything, and that's why we exist in such a bizarre time. Every film was too long. I think I can say that for everyone, right? Like, it's always just too long. I think that some of these films can be made into a series. I think Brooke Shields' documentary should be in a series. But everyone showed up too. And the Anne Hathaway film, it was called Eileen.
Yeah.
Awesome. It's a Hitchcock thriller noir film based on a novel it's like a kind of a coming of age story. This woman works in a prison, this young woman, Anne Hathaway, comes in, this buxom 40s, 50s chick who went to Harvard, changing the world kind of thing. And this very sinister thing goes down, and it's dark, it's gritty, and it's cool. And I was like, this is good filmmaking. And it's the same director who did Lady Macbeth. He's definitely an auteur. He's working his way with his style. It was pretty cool. And then I did attend a party or two. I'm not going to say I didn't. And I will say, because the whole freaking place cleared out by Saturday, it was kind of chill and cool. And I wanted all you guys to be there. I swear to God. Like, we would have had a blast.
If it wasn't like $10,000 to rent a condo in Park City, it gets ridiculous. The price gouging is kind of, it used to be Sundance was like a cheap trip. We all stay together in one condo. There were one year in the early 2000s, there were like 8 of us in a condo, and it was a blast. Now Sundance has made it just impossible for filmmakers, even if you're just like someone like, hey, I'm just a film fan, I just want to attend, I want to get inspired, and it's really just become pretty god awful.
Chris, I stayed in Heber City. I commuted the whole time.
You commuted in. Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's because I got sponsored in a way, so to speak.
Ben, you're up next.
Cool.
What film do you want to tell us about?
So ever since the Blair Witch Project, I've always liked the Midnight series at Sundance. It's where you see the truly horrific and creepy. And today's offering, In My Mother's Skin, is no different.
So it's called In My Mother's Skin.
In My Mother's Skin.
Okay, it's already a creepy title. What's it about?
So, this is Filipino American probably, Kenneth Dagatan's first dark fairy tale. It's like the inverse of a Guillermo del Toro fairy tale, where you get something that feels horrific but ends up optimistic. In this case, it's horrific and it goes all the way dark. And in the setting of World War II Philippines, while the Japanese are rampaging and ravaging the land, a once prosperous family in a small unnamed village is having a serious problem because the father apparently may or may not have absconded with some Japanese gold. He's gone off to go take care of this problem somehow. And in his absence, both his wife, Ligea, gets sick with something terrible, and the family runs out of food. So the oldest daughter, named Tala, does something that she is told she's absolutely not supposed to do, and goes into the deep, thick jungle next to their house. She encounters a fairy played with grand sociopathic charm by, what's her name? Let's get this. Jasmine Curtis Smith. And the fairy gives her a jar and says, it's up to you to decide what to do with it, but if you use the contents of this jar, it will take care of your mother's sickness. And does it ever? Her mother becomes an aswang, which is the Filipino version of a vampire, and all hell breaks loose. And the movie takes off after she tries to heal her mother with the jar and turns her mother into said vampire.
So this was a midnight movie that was played, I'm going to guess, at the Egyptian. Did you see it at the Egyptian or?
Sadly, no, I saw it virtually, but it was played at the
we got a
Egyptian.
screener for it. Yeah,
exactly.
Okay.
Sabina was the only one there. All of us are watching online.
So Ben, it's like you're in a video game that's glitching. That's what it appears to be.
Oh, that's my virtual background. It's one I use for all my meetings.
There you go.
It's a lovely city on the planet of Thra, if you're familiar.
Oh, well, it looks like you're just trying to cover up the unfolded laundry that is clearly in the background. Well, first of all, I love indie horror films. I love indie horror. So this is something that I'm sure is probably at some point going to come out. But I love the title too, In My Mother's Skin. What's the next film you want to tell us about?
The next film I wanted to talk about was, so my favorite film was Nicole Holofcener's. And to Sabina's point, yes, I agree that every film is too long, but that was the one time where I wish that it could go on and on and on. Like, I mean, you just wanted to keep living with those characters forever. Like, it was 89 minutes or something. And there's something to be said about being succinct and leaving characters and leaving viewers wanting more, as opposed to, like, have it which is 6 hours long or something. So the next film I want to talk about was Magazine Dreams, which was, like, I believe, one of the highlights of the festival. That was the consensus, I think, from what I've read. I was blown away. Again, I went in with no expectations. To Chris's point, I think that when you have really low expectations, you tend to be really amazed by films that are subpar. And when you have very high expectations, vice versa, like a really good film sometimes might disappoint you just because everybody's raving about it. So, and I'm the one who kind of tends to go against the grain, So if everybody says something's really good, like, I never got into Harry Potter. I never got into, like, all those popular things that everybody loves, just because I'm, like, a cynic and I go against, like, what everybody loves, but mainstream taste, so to speak. But holy shit, is that movie like deeply affecting and mesmerizing and, like, can't take your eyes off the screen performance by Jonathan Majors. Like, Jonathan Majors, after this film, I'm convinced, can do anything. Like, he can play anyone from, like, a heartbroken homeless person to the richest man in the world with aplomb. Like, he plays a bodybuilder in the film, an aspiring bodybuilder, living in a small house. His mom and dad have passed away, so he lives in sort of like in this little bubble, in this little kind of depressing bubble where he lives his dreams out. Every morning he wakes up to just a slew of posters on his walls of all of his idols, bodybuilders. He keeps calling one of his idols, trying to reach him. He spends the entire day working on his physique, which is godlike, like Greek god, like physique. This man, like, sculpted his body to an extreme point that I have no idea how he's even done it. And he attempts to win, like, first of all, participate in, and secondly, of course, win some sort of contest and gain international recognition for his efforts and the struggle that he is experiencing. And it's very difficult to watch, but you can't take your eyes off the screen, because I don't want to spoil anything about the film, but it just kind of goes deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole. And the second half of the film, he goes absolutely unhinged. So if you want to see Jonathan Majors at his most unhinged, that's the film to watch.
You mean don't see Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, where he plays Kang the Conqueror. See, yes. Magazine. I'm hearing Magazine Dreams. They're saying he is a lock to get nominated for Best Actor next year.
Absolutely. If he doesn't, then there's no justice in this world. I mean, this is the performance to watch, like, to beat this year, I would say. It's incredible. It's, like, jaw-dropping. Like, I walked away from this film and I watched it like 4 days ago and it still stays with me. It's not a perfect film, but he makes up for all the tiny little flaws that come along the way.
Gotcha. That one is at the top of my list because you're not the only person I've heard rave about that film and Jonathan Majors' performance. I hope that he's really good as Kang, because he's effectively the villain of the next phase of Marvel, phase 5 and 6. Not that any of you would know about this. I think Alan would know since he's a Disney fan. And
I'm actually attending the Ant-Man premiere. I got invited, so I'm going to go. I think like it's in February. So
yeah.
We'll see
Are
you
you
there.
going to the screening or the premiere?
Screening. Well, it's a screening. It's not a premiere.
Right. I'll be there too with Alan.
Great.
Alan
So we'll
will
all be there
We'll
together.
all be there. Okay, let's meet up early. We'll go to Yard House before.
Excellent. And then I looked it up, and he's in 2 Avengers movies. To your point, coming out.
Right.
So he's good. He's got a pretty good career.
So it's a good bet he doesn't die in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania.
Unless the other films are a prequel to that film, which you never know anymore.
Or this one's a variant. And
A
then,
variant, yeah. Well, here's what's interesting is when you do something that's mainstream, where I'm sure he's very good in the new Ant-Man movie. Jonathan Majors is very good. But what I'm curious about is like that will actually help him with magazine dreams, right? Because you do a couple of mainstream things like, oh, that's good. Then you do like a groundbreaking performance. It just adds to the fuel of like, this guy's a talent deserving of Best Actor. Jason, I know you've been patient. You've been on and off. Alex, when do you need to leave? Because you've got at least one more movie to talk about, right?
I'm waiting for the kids to come back. As soon as they come back, I'll text you guys and I'll sort of drop off, but they're still gone. So
okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. Just wanted to make sure if there's another movie you wanted
to
talk about, we could get in before that happens.
Always.
Also, I do have a movie to talk about as well. So.
Oh, Alan.
Alan, you're not allowed. You're not part of it.
I'm attending this thing too.
All right, Alan.
I'm attending this thing too.
What's the movie?
Oh no, I was gonna go after Jason.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to pipe in, Alex. You couldn't be. It's true. Magazine Dreams definitely had a lot of talk, and also the shorts blocks. Everyone was talking about shorts blocks the whole time, and Magazine Dreams. That's kind of it. I mean, but people love the shorts. So I just wanted to throw that out there. There's
a reason behind it. It's an uncompromising feature. And really quickly to your point, Chris, like as a former distributor, it's absolutely true what you said. We always feed off of the big releases. So if we have an actor and he's in a big movie, then we coincide the release of the smaller film a little bit after that one, so that like there's that trickle down effect, and it really works.
Well, real quick, before you go, Alan, Jason saw a film that I also saw at the Slamdance Film Festival, and we have to talk about it. I started watching it twice. Love Dump. Okay, Love Dump is playing the Slamdance Film Festival. It's like a parody of a Hallmark movie. Jason, tell us about Love Dump. Well, there we go. I don't think Jason can hear it. That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah, it's a parody, in the vein.
I think your internet is pretty bad, Jason. Can you hear me?
Hey, actually, I got to jump off because I'm near the end of the time I can participate. But I only saw Willie at the festival, so that's perfectly fine.
All right.
Hey, I will see you all later.
All right, take care, Michael. Thanks again for dropping by. All right, cool. Jason, I think we're having problems with your internet. I think you're hearing us like several seconds after we talk. Is that? Are you on your phone?
Yeah.
All right, Jason. I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to drop you, man. It's no big deal.
You can't tell if he's hearing you or not.
I can't tell if he can hear us. We'll talk to you later. Everybody, wave bye to Jason.
Bye, Jason.
Jason, we'll see you. Okay.
I feel bad. I warned him in the chat. I go, if your internet's
bad, I'm sorry, you can't do it.
No, don't feel bad.
Don't feel bad where you're just going to be dropped off. Alan, let's go next for you. Yeah. I'll do Love Dump.
Yeah, no.
What movie are you going to talk about?
I'm going to talk about The Pod Generation, and this is a movie that I can't believe played at Sundance, because I feel like there's a certain politics that you expect from films at Sundance, and this one kind of is interesting. It's first of all, this is a movie that has everything I like about science fiction. It's the idea of taking an aspect of humanity and exploring it through a science fiction structure here. And so what's happening is Emilia Clarke and Chiwetel Ejiofor star as Rachel and Alvi, a married couple. Rachel works for a tech company developing the newest AI kind of Alexa and stuff like that. Basically, it's Megan. And then Alvi is a botanist who works with plants. I know you know what a botanist is, but this is important. It's a dying art because this is a utopian society where the synthetic is taking over the natural. So everyone's food is printed on 3D printers. Your therapist is now an AI program that you can just talk with. And so we're moving in total tech direction. And so Rachel is feeling kind of the pangs of wanting to have a child, but she's moving on in her career. She's moving up in her career. And her company just happens to have a subsidiary called Pegasus, which allows her to have a baby, but in these plastic pods. And so they'll take one of her eggs and whatever, sperm or whatever to impregnate it. And then they'll put it in the pod, and then the baby will grow in that pod so that she doesn't have to put her career on pause. And an interesting line in the movie, they talk about now that women can have babies in pods, now they have complete sexual freedom over their bodies, which is an interesting point to make in this movie. And so they decide to have this child in a pod. And what the movie does is just explores this idea of the synthetic versus the natural. And that how a corporation is now able to allow you to have a baby in a pod. Now it comes with these restrictions. It comes with a bunch of caveats to it. They're grown in this sterile environment. And on the other hand, there's Alvi, played by Chiwetel Ejiofor. He is on this crusade to bring the natural back. He works at a university, and he has students come into his greenhouse to taste real food. And they have this cabin in the woods that no one goes to because, well, no one has to go into the woods anymore. There are nature programs or nature rooms you can go into and feel nature. And so the whole movie is about this battle between the natural and the synthetic, and questions, yes, man and scientists can create synthetic versions of the natural, but is that better? It's almost as if, you're to take your immune system and say, hey, we can make medicines that are equal or comparable to your immune system. But the question isn't our natural body, the natural function of things, far superior than what science can make? And it really, it really takes some interesting viewpoints. And again, it's kind of like, how is this playing Sundance? And so, I like this because it does exactly what science fiction does. It tells you a story, questions something about humanity, and causes you to think about it afterwards and consider the ramifications of decisions and directions we're making. And so I highly recommend the Pod Generation.
That when I read the description of that, I love science fiction and done by the sort of, anything at Sundance, there's going to be more layers to it. It sounds like, I hate to say this, it sounds like we're not that far from that.
Yeah.
Printed food, all that stuff. It just sounds really, really distressing.
Yeah. But see, we have this discussion all the time about science fiction. It should say something. Right. It shouldn't just be lasers and starships and adventures. It should say something about the human condition. And that's what I like about this movie.
You mean laser swords?
Yeah, laser swords.
Laser swords. Cool. I really want to tell you about Love Dump, but I know some of other people. Love Dump, which I saw at Slamdance, and I started to watch it twice. I'm probably, after this stream, I'm going to go back to finish watching it a second time. But before I tell you about Love Dump, who wants to go next to tell us about a single movie?
I think it might be Ben's turn.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. All right, let's go. All right, Alex, tell us about what's the film?
Yeah, don't do Infinity Pool, by the way. We're going to talk about that later this week.
Oh, okay. That's exactly what I was going to talk about.
Okay. We're going to talk about Infinity Pool on Friday. Infinity Pool recently played. It's from David Cronenberg's son. What's his
name?
Brandon Cronenberg.
We used to joke that it was Chip, and then we learned it was Brandon, and we're pretty.
It's Brandon Cronenberg. Okay, so we're talking about Infinity Pool on Friday because Alan and I will both have seen it. But what else did you see, Alex? You can tell us about.
I saw another film called Run Rabbit Run, which was a little bit more meandering than the rest. So it still had a lot of ambition in it. Sarah Snook plays a mother who lives with her daughter. It's just the two of them. And it's, to summarize it so that I don't wax poetic forever, it's sort of like a gradual decline, psychological decline you're witnessing of the mother as she's attempting to take care of her daughter. And as you do, the onion gets unraveled, layers are revealed. You find out more and more about her background and the reasoning behind it. So the daughter starts envisioning herself as the mother's deceased sister. She thinks that Sarah Snook's character's sister who has died is now possessing her body. And so she's talking to her through the body of her daughter, which is kind of an intense premise. But the film lacks outright scares, makes up for it in gradual sort of rising in tension, and a great performance by Sarah Snook, who's primarily known for Succession, a very famous, very popular show on HBO. So, I have mixed feelings about it, but I think that her performance and the fact that they strive for some sort of psychological depth, they might not nail it, but they, how many horror films even go for it these days? So I gave him extra points for that.
Well, that one, I love anything that's kind of visually interesting. Like this primary image is bizarre, but I just want to remind people too that like we're sort of giving you the summary of things. You can always go to filmthreat.com and just read the reviews by this amazing group of writers. Most of them have good internet. Some of the writers do not have great internet. I'm talking about, of course, Alan and Jason. You guys, I got my Spectrum 500 megabytes per second. Very, very, very pleased.
The quality of writing isn't directly proportional to the quality of the internet connection.
Exactly. Yeah, that's true. That's true. But no, I just want to show that visual there because it's pretty cool, and you can also go read the reviews. Just remind everyone. Yeah, sorry, Jason. I love Jason. He's gonna be joining us at Award This. We're still locking down the date for Award This, which is Film Threat's annual award show, and we'll be doing that. We're getting close to announcing a date. It's the only award show you can buy a ticket to. All right, who wants to go next?
If it's possible, may I interject? If it's possible to join the Infinity Pool podcast that you guys are going to do.
That's on Friday. It's on Friday.
I have a lot of thoughts about it, and a lot. It's a crazy.
Okay. Friday at 9 a.m. Friday at 9 a.m. We'll send you the link, Alex. Cool.
Perfect.
You can join.
Thank you.
Okay, cool. Who wants to go next, and what movie are you talking about?
Sure.
What movie?
Okay. You just want Sundance or Slamdance is good too?
Just a movie that you really are enthusiastic and want to tell us about.
Yeah, you could throw Slamdance in there. I think that's what you're asking.
Okay, so my Slamdance thing that I saw virtually was a glorious little travelogue called Onlookers. It's a first film by a lady named Kimi Takasu, and she takes us to a small town and accompanying village in Laos. And for essentially what looks like to be a week, we experience the day-to-day happenings in this place in Laos that we never learned the name of. And it's deeply experiential. It's very cool. And she managed in the editing to set up a sort of break where you know which day you are, because every day these 4 or 5 ladies show up, sit on the side of the road with these pots. And you're wondering, what are they doing with these pots? And eventually you learn that these are the women tasked with feeding the local monastery of Buddhist monks. And it is so fascinating to watch them every day show up at this place with their pots of food, and then At the end, all the monks show up and get it. It's very cool. I enjoyed seeing the sort of uncanny reactions of the tourists to this part of Laos. It was a central part because you see these river boats with lots of people who don't look Laotian in any way show up and start snapping pictures of everything. There were other interesting little things going on, like at one point in the movie, we watch a rowing team go up the river, and then later in the movie, we watch them come back down the river. It's both equally hilarious and absorbing to watch these things happen as a normal slice of life in this gloriously beautiful, undisclosed part of Laos.
Nice. Cool. All right, wait. Did we lose Alan?
I'm right here.
Okay, cool.
He's right there.
Cool. All right, that's cool. Let's go to now. You know what? I'm going to tell you about a movie that I saw. I've been watching a bunch of Slamdance movies, and I can tell you about a bunch of them, but I'm just going to tell you about one Slamdance movie. So let me do this. Wait, what am I doing? Wait, let's go to some comments here. I actually have some comments starred. Brett Cohen says a company in Cali is trying to raise funds for pod births, so it's not really sci-fi anymore. And Jason Delgado sent a crying while laughing emoji, and there you are. All right, wait. No, here we go. I'm doing a reset. I've got it all set here. No, we'll just do this. We'll do. I want to tell you about a movie called Love Dump. It's basically a parody of a Hallmark movie, your typical Hallmark romance, but it is so self-aware. This movie was made in, it's dated on IMDb as 2020, but it's out now because I think a lot of filmmakers very smartly decided that they weren't going to release their movies unless you could do an in-person screening. And I can see why, because this is a movie that you would want to see with an audience. It's a straight up comedy and they don't waste any lines. In addition, I saw it with the closed captioning on, and there are jokes even in the closed captioning, which I've never seen before. I've never seen where you see in the closed captioning and it'll say, he walks over to her sumptuously. Like, it's like a weird, like, why would you even put that in the closed captioning? Like, they were completely self-aware that a lot of people these days watch movies with closed captioning on. And so they did. It works so well. So Jessica Dump owns a store where she buys and sells garbage. And she lost her father when she was young because they were building a popsicle stick birdhouse that had jokes on it, and she only needed one popsicle stick with a joke on it, and she can't find that particular joke popsicle stick. And she meets this guy just sort of randomly. It's the stupidest way. He meets her, she's on a picnic with some other dude, and this guy sort of smashes into her, and he ends up with this horrible wound on his leg, and she fixes it. Then it cuts, and they kind of have this moment. He's a dog lawyer. I mean, all of this is played completely deadpan straight, right? Like deadpan straight. I'm a dog lawyer, and none of it makes sense. Cut to, it's like there's a little cap that says 15 years later. And he ends up going into this junk shop where he finds her again. They have that connection, gets her phone number, but he loses the phone number. All of the conflicts in this are ridiculous. Everything is over the top. It's played completely straight, and I love it. I don't know. I cannot rave about this movie enough. I think Alan in particular, you're a huge fan. You need to see it. It's if you're a fan of like indie comedy, like this is going to be nominated for next year. Jason actually wrote the review of it on the website. It's so stupid and self-aware, and it's just mocking all the dumb cliches that Hallmark movies have. Like it's just, and you can tell everyone in the movies like having a good time. It's completely stupid. It's how modern romance is portrayed, or at least as portrayed in Hallmark movies, and it's hysterical because it's just so over the top, and it's also like kind of gross sometimes. I don't want to get into it, but there's like an exchange. The relationship between Jessica Dump and her father is so funny. I can't ruin it. I can't ruin it. Yeah. I just want to say is, you got to check this one out. It's totally worth it. And it's at Slamdance, and you can see it if you go to slamdance.com. If you go, okay, where can you watch that?
Yeah, it's actually slamdancechannel.com, where you can watch all the Slamdance films for $7.99. There's a 2-week trial, but I would definitely suggest supporting Slamdance and cough up the $8.
Yeah, $8 for 1 month of access, and you can see, I don't know, there's like 40 or 50 movies. Strongly recommend you check it out. Wait, see, I had this thing that said the Slamdance, because this is Slamdance, Alan. See?
Yeah, slam it.
Slamdance.
That film.
There's a lot of good. There's a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, your description of the film actually reminds me of David Wayne's like little scene and totally underrated film, They Came Together. Have you seen that one with Paul Rudd and Amy Poehler, which totally like
I've seen it.
Riffs on like romantic comedy. Yeah, they came, and even the title is funny because they came together. You know what I'm saying? Like 100. So, but the whole thing is so hilarious. I don't understand why it made like $300 at the box office. It's one of the best.
No, I saw that movie in the theater because I don't know, I love Paul Rudd, and I like a parody of a romantic comedy. I feel like is the only way you can go at this point. So
yes, well, you'll like Paul Rudd in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania.
Wait, Alan, say that again. Say that again, Alan. Oh my God.
What, you want to repeat a joke twice? I mean, that's. Yeah, you'll love Paul Rudd in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania.
Look at you. Anything else? I know, Alex, you're on a time crunch. Any other movies that you think we need to feature that we didn't get to feature? Then this is really just a tease, because ultimately, if you go to filmthreat.com, you can actually read all of these reviews, and you can read them throughout the year. And we'll even like rerun reviews if, like, say, for example, Love Dump is coming to theaters or it's out on VOD. We sort of repost those on our front page to give them further, to feature them further. But I don't know. I think it's probably time for us to wrap it up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, like, I'm really grateful for the opportunity to be able to be reviewing all those films from the comfort of my own home. And thank you, Team Film Threat. And I hope that, my reviews do justice to the films, because, it is difficult to make a film, and every film does in a way deserve a standing ovation just for getting made. And then, then come the critics and, rip it to shreds. So props to everybody, and thank you so much.
One thing I wanted to mention too was that Robert Redford did not show up this year. So that was sort of interesting on the street. And none of that stuff, nobody attended any of that from anyone that I talked to. But I wanted to mention that for the first time ever, I saw one of those classic 25th anniversary films. And so they had Slam, and everyone mentioned the Film Threat review from that way back when. They loved it.
We've been around a while. People do remember.
It was pretty cool.
You get love from a lot of media outlets that kind of come and go. Film Threat's been around. I don't even want to say how long it's been around.
During the screening, you said, or?
Well, I met everybody on a press line, and I'll tell you, they all came together. The directors, the producers, Sonia was there. The big Slam guy was there, who's now a huge deal. I'm spacing his name right now. But what's fascinating is the film was about a guy who does slams, who got put into jail for marijuana, right? And he just got out 2 years ago. And marijuana is legal in DC, and it all takes place in DC. And so he was there at this screening, and he did do a slam, which was kind of cool.
Let's go.
The archives are fun.
Well, I will say this: Film Thread has been around longer than Sundance has been around.
Yes.
Well, no, longer than Sundance, the brand. Sundance, previous to 1989, was called the United States Film Festival.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
They changed their name in 1989, which I believe was the same year that Sex, Lies, and Videotape played the festival and was acquired by Harvey Weinstein. Yeah. And so I know because I've written articles about this, but it changed its name in 1989 to the Sundance Film Festival. And we started going in the early 90s. We started attending Sundance when it became a Discovery Festival. Sabina, you mentioned that people were, coming up to you and saying Film Threat and pulling you out of line and throwing you in the.
That's
great. It's cool.
I love Film Threat. You guys are mean a lot to me. You have no idea, and you don't know where I am ever. But and I will be at the next awards. You bet.
You're going to be at award this? Okay.
Totally.
We have to lock down a date. We had to move some things around, but we are locking down a date. I'll make an announcement on River and of course publicly. So it's so much fun. If you need extra tickets, we're gonna do kind of the same thing we did last year, but there are going to be several improvements of which I can't announce right now, but it's going to be really fun. It's the only award show you can buy a ticket to. There'll be drinks, gift bags.
Well worth it.
You get the whole awards experience. We don't take ourselves too seriously. We have a great time. I just want to say thank you.
I will say one improvement is the street in front of the theater has been paved.
Oh, look at that.